Thank you for tuning in to the World Builders Anvil, episode 298, Storytelling Crimes. Ba-ba-ba-bum.
Don't know where to start building your fantasy world?
Do you need more? Does it make sense?
Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination.
This is the place where we will prime your mind.
Now, it's time to heat up the forge.
Break out the mithril ingots and hammer.
Welcome to the World Builders Anvil. I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm Michael Miller.
Let's sup from the mug of Java and build. Welcome back. As
Stop
always,
that man!
It's Evil Proud coming to you.
You're under arrest for storytelling crimes. Quit breaking storytelling laws, Jeffrey.
I'm going to skip past that and pretend like that never happened.
You've been doing it this whole time.
Yes.
We are talking about storytelling crimes today. But before we get into that, I have got shout outs. It's been all too long.
Oh, yeah. People.
A ton of people have joined since we last did our pre-show shout-outs. So I've got a big list here. And some of these may be people that I mentioned on our last shout-out. But as mentioned before, and as we will mention in the future, we would rather say the person's name twice than miss somebody. So
yes. So we missed you. We're real jerks to you.
Yes, and we apologize if that has ever happened. But I don't think it has. So thank you so much for joining our closed Facebook group. And it's not really closed. It's open. Everybody can join. Does that make sense?
I have no idea literally what you're talking about.
So if you decide you want to join the Facebook group, just realize that you're going to get prompted with 3 questions. Those questions really don't matter. They're just there to weed out bots and people that are going to spam us. So yes. Just answer the questions. We prefer comedic answers.
Most definitely. There's a third one asking for your email address. That's simply if you actually want information outside of Facebook because it can get lost. If you do, go in there. I'm not really good at sending out emails anyway, but you can even skip that one. But you have to attempt to answer the first 2.
Or even the email one, like acknowledge that you read it, right? Not available or no thanks.
Or just tell me to F off.
Yeah, you can say
I don't care about you trying to sell to me, even though you don't actually remember to sell.
Your email address could be a dirty limerick for Jeff. I'm sure he'd appreciate that.
That would actually be kind of, if you could deliver it like a tasteful but filthy one.
I think those are a little contradictory. Anyway, thank you for joining the closed Facebook group. Jacob, Emily, Novels and Other Failed Attempts, Jason, Holly, Tom, Dustin, Keith, Gemma Joe, I hope I'm saying this one right, Ephus or Ephus, Rowan, Victor, Val, Jake, Caleb, Maya, Michael, Brandon, Corinne, Mike, and Celine.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Rowan is actually a character in someone's fantasy novel.
I think that too. And I may have shouted some of those out before because if Rowan sounded familiar, I may have shouted him out.
That could be from reading the
last one.
Modern fantasy.
That's what I'm thinking.
Too. Yeah.
I also want to put out a. I'm going to totally be selfish with our show here. I want to put out a big shout out to my father and everybody that loved him. We're recording this at 1 p.m. on what I don't even know what day it is. Is it Tuesday?
Today's Tuesday. I had no idea either when we talked earlier. And so I get home and I talk to my wife to see if we can record.
It is Tuesday.
And she's like, I have to go to school. Like, yes, I know this.
So we're recording at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I'm just now hearing all the lawn care that's going on. Can you hear that weed whacker and the lawnmower?
Not really.
Okay, good. Hopefully the listeners can't either. And this morning, my father, a lot of people would say it this way. This morning, Joseph Miller lost his battle with cancer. That's not how I would say it. I would say it this morning, my father lost his battle with life. My father passed away this morning, and it was a little bit of a blessing because he has not been well for a while. And certainly since he went into the hospital about a week and a half ago with shallow breathing and rapid heart rate. He had, what is the term? He was tachycardic. So that's like rapid heart rate. And the home that he was living in couldn't stabilize it. So they're like, send him to the ER.
Mm-hmm.
So went to the ER and without getting into all the BS, they drained a 1.2 liters worth of fluid out of his lung and an additional 1 liter of fluid out of the area around his heart. Now, once that was
2
done,
liters.
2, yeah, more than.
Okay, that sounds
once
like a lot.
once that was done, his breathing got a lot better. Now he had COPD, so his breathing got a lot better. His heart rate stabilized, and he was feeling better. We're like, okay, good. Now he's been off and on with pneumonia for the past 5 months, and he was in the midst of battling a pneumonia stint, I think is the word I was shooting for. Stint.
I think stint is the word.
Stint is the word I was shooting for. Stint of pneumonia. And of course, having COPD, he was prone to it. And they couldn't get rid of it they had tried multiple runs of different antibiotics and steroids. They couldn't get rid of it. Finally, at the hospital, they were able to start to doing something. And they discovered that something they had noticed in his lungs earlier in the year, which they thought was part of another bout of pneumonia that he was dealing with. But they were like, this could be cancer, but we're not sure. But to biopsy it would have been really invasive. So they're like, we're going to wait and see if anything changes. And then here he is in the hospital again. So they looked at it again. They're like, yeah, things have changed. They're like, this is stage 4 lung cancer. They also tested the fluid they drained out of his lungs. They're like, if we find cancerous cells.
Oh, they could get the cells. Yeah.
Right. They're like, if they find cancerous cells in the fluid, it's a no-brainer. So they found cancerous cells and they're like, this is stage 4 lung cancer. And that was a week ago. And now my father's gone. Wow. So,
because even like a month ago, we were talking about it, and your father's been sick, but you did not see an imminent.
Well, my father's breathing has been terrible for more than a year, and it's been a steady decline. But with discovering that he had stage 4 lung cancer, it could have metastasized. He could have had it in the brain. He could have been all over his body that we weren't aware of. And based on how erratic's not the right word. My father has been mentally ill for most of his life. And some of what he was, some of his behavior and talking and things he would say, we chalked up to that. But then he had Parkinson's, and Parkinson's can also affect the mind. So there's a bunch of things that could have caused his behavior and his speech, things he said, things he did. It's hard to pin on what it was. But like my brother was like, can you hang on just a second? I need to close that window because that noise is bothering the hell out of me. Hang on. I swear to God, all my neighbors' lawn care services know when I record, and they pull out the lawnmowers and weed whackers as soon as I hit record.
Well, your neighbor out here pays double if they can
if they can interrupt the show. So we don't know for sure, and we never will, and that's fine. The big thing is that it was tough on my father. My father. So the reason I say my father finally, and I'm going to say it this way, completed his battle with life, because I'm not going to say he lost. I'm just going to say that it's over. A lot of people say like, oh, this person lost their battle with cancer or whatever. I'm just going to say that it's complete. My father had such a hard life.
But still, you can say complete though. He had 3 beautiful, or at least 2 beautiful kids.
You're talking about my brother and sister, not me, right? Fair enough. I could go on and on about the things that my father did and the things that my father was. The listeners never met my father, so I don't want to bore you guys. We'll get to the show in a second, but I wanted to be a little cathartic and selfish and just be like, my dad's gone. Let you guys know that, if only for me. And I'm going to be dealing with that and I thank Jeff because he was kind enough to allow me to distract myself by recording today, because normally we'd record on Thursday or Sunday. But so that's what I'm dealing with today, and I'm on my second whiskey when I started, before noon. So. But I've also been trying to be productive. I've been getting some stuff done around the house, and I've been cooking. So
it's not like you're downing a bottle here. You're drinking a little.
No. I'm going slow because I don't want to get wrecked and then have my family be like, oh, hey, we need you to come to here to help pick out, like my
You
brother.
have to sign out paper or something.
Well, my sister's signing out the medical documentation because she's his power of attorney. Medical. My brother went out to get a suit to put my dad in. And he had some other thing to take care of. I don't know. And, of course, I've been talking to friends and family and letting everybody know. I spoke with Nate this morning, who recently lost his father. So, so we were talking.
Good.
I don't know. I don't even know what else to say here on the show other than I'm just sharing information.
Yeah. Just remember life maybe a little bit. So
yeah, I mean, and I mean, certainly we're going to get to like, world building tasks and real world tasks. But I will say, even if you've got a difficult relationship with your parents, they've given you so much more than you realize, and they've sacrificed so much more than you may ever know on your behalf.
And sometimes,
be
even if you
grateful,
didn't, it's
thankful.
easy to forget about them now.
Even if your parents suck, be grateful and be thankful. And this is the most important thing I can say, forgive.
Yeah.
Like, forgive, because forgiveness is for you, not for them.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean open yourself up to more harsh treatment.
Yes. I mean, don't allow yourself to be victimized.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can forgive people for the wrongdoings they've done against you, then you can get past it. If you can't forgive, you're going to carry that shit around with you for the rest of your life.
Amen.
The irony is that I might be saying it this way, but I actually needed my father's forgiveness. Jeff, I don't think I've ever mentioned this on the show. You, and I don't know that I've ever thanked you for it, but you changed my life.
Okay. No, I do not know.
No, you do know, but I don't think you know it this way.
Okay.
Jeff and I are both Landmark graduates, and we've got friends who have recommended Landmark's a seminar series, and
they call it today a mindfulness kind of thing.
Yeah. We have friends that had recommended it to me many, many times, and I was like, hey, it sounds great, sounds good, sounds fun, blah, 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 but I never got around to it.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff called me up one day and had a really incredible brief, but incredible conversation with me. He called me up one day, and he said something to the effect of, we have a great friendship, and I've always enjoyed the friendship we have, but I've been holding back on talking to you in a way that would give us a better friendship, and I would like our friendship to be better and different in the future. I'm really paraphrasing. I don't know if you remember what you said.
I don't even remember the conversation.
I do. I remember the conversation.
It sounds way too smart for me, but yeah.
I was in the basement of a job while I was still working for Roger. I was wiring in a service. I remember exactly where I was. And because I was like, it took me out of left field, and it wasn't awkward, because you have to understand that back then, Jeff and I didn't speak this way to each other. We certainly had a good, but usually good. It
was more like we'd be hanging out, and then we'd hang out when we hung out.
We'd usually talk about gaming stuff or creative stuff. We'd very rarely talk about our feelings or the nature of our friendship or whatever.
We're guys. Guys don't typically do
that. So he calls me up, and he has this very emotionally vulnerable conversation that was very comfortable. It wasn't awkward or weird. And I was like, wow, thanks. That's awesome. That's great. And I said, are you doing Landmark this weekend? Is that what is prompting this? And he was like, yeah. He's like, I am. And I'd like you to be my guest on Tuesday to come check it out. And I said, I'll be there. And when I went, I was conflicted and confronted by the process. But I was like, you know what? There's something to this. There's something here. And I'd be better off doing this than not. So I did it, and I never would have done it if it were not for you.
I'll say to people right now, put Landmark aside. There are a couple different things I've done that sort of help you go through yourself and sort of do a mental checklist. Those are good to do occasionally, no matter how comfortable or happy you are in life. They do make you better people.
Like I said,
thankful for what's around you.
I had friends that impressed upon me how impactful and how positive doing that seminar series was for them. And I was like, wow, that's great for you. And I was never motivated to get it for myself until that phone call.
Yeah.
And having done that work has made every day of my life easier since.
I forget who said this, but it's like, if not you, then who? If not now,
Right.
when?
Mm-hmm.
It was someone smart.
Yeah. And I thank you so much for that. During my Saturday, because you do it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Tuesday afternoon. During my Saturday, there, of course, there's a part in their education where you have to talk to your parents. And I called my father. What I got present to, and I didn't realize this, was that I was so angry with him. I had been angry with my father. And you have to realize at this point, I'm like 28 years old, roughly. I had a decent relationship with my dad. You know, like we'd go and hang out, we'd talk. But I didn't realize that I was still harboring a shit ton of anger from when I was a teenager. I wasn't even aware of it. It was there. It was in my subconscious. It was hanging out. And going through that education brought it right in front of me and it slapped me in the face with me. It slapped me in the face with it. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm so angry.
Yeah.
And I was ready to let it go because of that. So I called my father and I told him that I said, I've been so angry with you for all of these years. And he's like, I didn't know. I said, Dad, I didn't know either. And I said, but that anger has prevented me from having a better relationship with you. And I want to put it down and have a better relationship with you. And I'm sorry. Can you ever forgive me? And without a hesitation, he said, there's nothing to forgive.
Yeah.
He's like, that's fine. And only now, in the past week, while my father has been dying, like legit dying, I mean, he's been dying for a year, but legit dying in the hospital, only now have I been examining him as a person and as a father and really trying to take on different perspectives looking at him. And I realized something I never realized before, just how generous he was. He was very generous to forgive me like that, like without a hesitation, with nothing. And I could go on and on citing different examples, but I never would have realized had I not taken the moment to examine and look at some of the things in his life and his behaviors. I never really knew my father to want for anything. And he was always willing to give away what he had. He didn't have a lot, but he was always willing to give it away.
Well, that's the thing too, is I think sometimes people, confuse, and we're really getting way off the point here. I apologize for people who are bored, but that's the nature of free podcast. Is people, I think conflate, mental illness with people who are incapable of treating other people, normal people, correct. And that's,
well, let's go with the word.
Sometimes the illness will get in the way, but that's typically a momentary thing. It's an illness thing. But when the person comes through, the person's who the person is. And some people, whether or not they're mentally ill, are good to people. And some people, whether or not they're mentally ill, are bad to people.
Let's go with the word typical. Let's forget the word normal.
Well, and people can't see my air quotes when I do that. So
I know.
I'm really not a believer in normal. So
that's a thing that my sister used to work in group homes for the mentally handicapped, and she was very adamant about you don't call them not normal. You don't call you normal. You call them non-typical, and you call us typical.
No, I like to think we're all individuals, and some of us just have different wiring.
So anyway, I'll spare you guys anymore. I appreciate anyone who's still listening, and if you're ready to get into storytelling crimes, I think we're ready to tackle this.
I'm going to add a completely new one in here right off the top. It's too much epilogue. It's the stuff before the story begins that is told for background. That really. Oh,
you think that's a crime? Story. Epilogue's a crime?
I just want to throw that in because we were talking a bunch off topic, so I thought it was kind of a funny thing to throw in there.
Gotcha.
I don't necessarily think it is. I do think it's a crime when it's pointless, and I probably have a pointless one in there. Yeah.
You probably. Let's define it first. Like, what is a storytelling? How do we define storytelling?
I define a storytelling crime as something that takes away from the story, and it's not like I don't like it. Like I don't like murder mysteries. Is not a story.
Why not?
No, I'm lying. I love them. But I'm saying like if there's a genre I don't like pornography, we'll say like erotica stories, which are horrible. Oh gosh, those are just terrible.
I was about to say, I still think you're lying.
You can't prove that though.
They're
terrible.
Not to them. Air quotes, guys. Air quotes.
But the point being, if you don't like something, it does not make it terrible. It does not make it a bad storytelling thing. It's things that take people out of the immersion of the story, or they ham fist the story forward. They're essentially, crimes are things that and sometimes they even might be a necessity, because let's say you're making a TV show or a movie, there's a limited time and budget to which you can work with, so you might be forced to do it sometimes. But there's still crimes. There's a good YouTube channel you should watch where they point them out even in movies you like. It's this I think the name of the channel is Screen Rant, and he will do
I've heard of Screen Rant. I've definitely watched Screen Rant.
He does screenplay pitches. So he plays the writer and the producer, and he'll pitch a story for like, Spider-Man or, whatever's the most popular thing out there at the moment. He'll do a pitch for it, or he'll go back and do older ones as well too.
I haven't seen that bit.
You'll love it, because he goes through and it really kind of points out all of the obvious holes that maybe you did or maybe you didn't even notice. And sometimes, you're like, oh yeah, I forget. Oh, that is kind of bad or whatever, But because the crimes don't necessarily make the story unenjoyable, but they do hurt the story, and sometimes to the point of being unenjoyable. And we might, as we go through, come up with examples for these things.
I got a couple that are not on this list that I think, but on my second.
And we're kind of, this list is infinitely long. So
and very personal to anyone who agrees with storytelling crimes.
So we'll go through and we'll talk more about these. The first ones I know is because the plot needs it, and this is especially like in the past 5 years, 10 years maybe. It's like I'm seeing more and more mainstream stories. It's just like the only thing really connecting it is a series of lucky coincidences that sort of push the entire story through.
We're talking about the ham-fist shoehorn of a thing to make the plot move forward because it requires a specific thing.
Like pretty much if you've seen any of the new Star Trek movies, that is the plots. It's just like, we need this thing. There's this thing. We need that thing. Oh, there's that thing, Oh, I walk to, I walk onto the street and a car stops in front of me. The person has a heart attack. Oh, that's wonderful, because I needed a car. And now I don't have to go across the street to steal one. There's one right in front of me. I can hop in and get away from the people chasing me. And which that's not actually, that probably actually did really happen in a movie. But I mean, most of the big movies coming out today, like Marvel's horrible at this. All of these, I mean, Star Trek definitely. Star Wars has a different issue, even though this is probably something you could argue about them as well too. But I would argue there's a bigger issue that Star Trek or Star Wars has. But a lot of the things is there's no reason for things that happen. They just happen to happen, and oh well, look. I needed Han Solo to be able to speak the same language as Chewbacca so he wouldn't eat him. Now, I enjoyed the movie Solo, but that was definitely one of those, this guy who was born an orphan and was raised by a crime. Luckily, he knew the language that Chewie did, where it wasn't fed you at all in his backstory. That's one of the reasons why you have epilogue and you have things that happen and side stories in narrative, is to have a reason like, wait, why Chewie or why Han Solo happened to be enslaved by a crime lord. One of the people in there the crime lord used was this Wookiee. Then you could go, okay, he knows the language. That's cool.
Yeah, but I'm going to argue that specific example with you just because I think they did that. I think they I think they excluded what you're requesting simply because it made for a great cinematic moment.
It did, but it also was a bad narrative moment. They're not mutually connected. There are lots of, I gotta say, like with my music taste and my movie taste, there are things that I love. Some of them are good, some of them aren't. And there's flaws in everything. This is the thing is sooner or later you go through any work because it's not a complete reality. There are going to be holes in it. And that one I would argue isn't super bad because it really wasn't that major to the story. But it did really help you get past that moment without having to spend time and character development. And I think my bigger problem is stories thrive on character development. And when you use it to take away character development, the thing I like about stories are hurt.
I think that's a good example only in that it very easily illustrates your point. I think it's a bad example in that I disagree with it because we're talking about a film example, which, like I said, for that moment created a really great cinematic moment with characters we were already familiar with. Like I loved that scene. It was one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Okay. So I agree with you on one side. I disagree with you on the other side. But I do think if it was a scenario where we were unfamiliar with the characters and the exact same thing happened, so i.e. anyone who watched the movie that wasn't a big Star Wars fan already and had already known who Han Solo was.
Because why would we want to tell stories for all people? Yeah.
My point is, I mean, this is totally sideways. Oh my God. It's totally sideways in that now we're talking about knowing your audience. Whereas most people that went to see Solo, they're very Star Wars familiar, so they can get away with a little leap and bound in logic for the sake of creating a better moment. But I do agree with
of that happening.
I do agree with you. What you said absolutely makes sense, but I never
we're going to waste time to make sure that someone hands Han Solo his signature blaster. That way it makes sense in the future. We're going to take time and waste on that, but we're not going to take character development time.
Because the blaster is so significant, as opposed to I'm kind of a mercenary bounty hunter, scumbag, smuggler that, I could just go get a gun.
Yeah, I could just go buy it at Walmart.
The gun doesn't have to be significant in any way. Who gives a shit?
And I think it was even a throwaway moment too. So I mean, it's just one of those things. Like,
remember it. I think Woody Harrelson.
Because that's the problem with a lot of these problems is it makes the moments forgettable. And a lot of times it's to do stuff that isn't needed. And what's a big problem like Star Wars is sometimes you try and milk it by telling information that people don't care about, and they might enjoy it going through it, or they might not, like in case of Solo, where in general it wasn't received very well.
And by they, you mean you.
I actually enjoyed the movie.
No, but that moment, clearly.
That moment I did not, yeah.
The irony is that this is really like a spike in my brain keeps bringing up the movie, and this is going to be so out of left field. Are you familiar with the movie Copycat?
I think I made a version of that.
Sigourney Weaver, Harry Connick Jr., I believe Dylan McDermott.
I do think I saw this, but I think I saw a really long time ago, so I don't really remember.
And I saw it a long time ago. I think I've seen the movie 2 or 3 times, definitely twice, possibly 3 times. And the thing that is coming to my, and it might not even quite be on topic, but it keeps coming to my mind, kind of the opposite of what you're saying, where because the plot needs it. Maybe the plot did need it, but that's not how I interpret it. Are you okay? You're making gestures.
Okay.
Oh, audio sounds totally different now. Small segue. One of the big problems with Hollywood and with entertainment in general is that a lot of writers that get acclaim and get projects made are men. This is a problem with the United States in general, from a patriarchal. Well, I'm going to specify the United States because we've got a patriarchal society that has slowly evolved over like the past 250 years, and the majority of our entertainment comes from those on high making decisions who tend to be men. That is a problem, and it's something that has really made its way into even the public lexicon, where there's a shit ton of women who've been dealing with this for like 50 years, where characters, movies, books, stories are not appropriately being displayed to show the female perspective. And this is both from a main character, this is a woman, and a broad-based story. It's written by a man, and the man does not get the female perspective, the female, agenda, anything. Right. So there's tons of movies out there, and even there's tons of really good movies that are female-centric movies that do a great job, but still they weren't written by women. You can watch go watch television, go watch movies. Like, if there's only one writer on that movie and it's a man, here's what you have to get. And this was mind-blowing for me. And I hope it's mind-blowing for you, the listener. I want you to think about this for a second. You're going to watch a movie, right? Tomorrow, or maybe tonight, or the next week. If there's one writer on that movie, I want you to get this idea. And this is kind of a weird idea. When it hit me, it was real weird. And I was like, wow, okay, I see what's going on here.
Let's say it's always the ex-girlfriend?
Nope. Let's say there's 5 characters in the movie. We'll keep it super simple. I mean, there's tons of movies. There's 10, 20, 30, 40 characters in the movie. Let's say there's 5. There's 5 characters. You have 5 different individuals. You have a man, you have an African American woman, you have an Asian child, you have different races, you have different genders, you have different political perspectives. Here's what you got to get. Every one of those characters, air quotes, I'm using air quotes, is one voice. It's one white man, usually, who wrote that. Now, he's doing his best, hopefully.
Or he's under a time crunch, one of the two.
Right. To approximate those other perspectives that you got to get, that any movie, book, or whatever, it's usually one person's I hate to use the word.
At least the core idea is usually one person. Yeah.
It's usually one agenda. So if you have a love story, a drama, a murder mystery, whatever, they're trying to tell you something, or at least if it's a good story, they should be. They should be trying to tell you something, and they're using the femme fatale and the tragic hero and they're on
TV tropes figuring out what
the untrustworthy partner, best friend, the backstabbing, whatever. They're using all these
partner who's going to retire tomorrow.
Yes, they're using all these characters to try to put one idea in your head. So you're watching this movie, but what you see is, I see a woman. And she has a troubled past, and I see a hero, clearly the main character, who wants to be better than he is. And I see a best friend who he's got something going on and we can't trust him. So when you watch it, you see a cast, you see a whole bunch of different characters and a whole bunch of different things. And you may not, and for a long time I didn't, so I'm including myself in this description. You may not realize what you're actually viewing, listening to, and being the subject of is a singular voice trying to push you in one direction. And that singular voice does not always understand the female perspective and women in general. There are actresses and there are directors that have been dealing with this literally for decades. And just now, it's so in the modern lexicon. It's out in the public.
I think the problem is in the modern lexicon. It's not that it's out there. It's been out there for a long time.
Yeah, but not the way it is now.
The difference is today is it's become a marketing ploy.
You think so?
Yes. Ghostbusters, it was completely the marketing thing of it.
Yep.
And the same thing with Captain Marvel. And when businesses use things as marketing, they don't care about the reality of it. The business's only thing, and this is their job, is to turn a profit.
Bottom line. Yeah.
And if they think that narrative with making their movie will help sell their movie, they're going to do it. And they don't care about the plot. They don't care if it's good. That would be nice. They want it to be huge. They want it to live forever. But if the point is the narrative to sell it, the marketing sometimes takes over many projects. Sometimes they could be good, but when marketing takes over a project and it gets out of the hand of the creative people, it typically comes through. You get influences, and these are corporations, and they have a single voice as well too. So you have to keep that in mind, and it's about making money.
So while that was a sideways rant, and we are now officially putting Mary Sue to bed, let's get to 10 Xing what? What?
How to take her to bed. Okay.
I I did not mean to do that. It's like an expression.
Well, you're the patriarchy. So moving on to 10Xing the cast, which we've kind of 10Xed this episode at this point.
10Xing the cast.
Thank you so much for listening to the World Builders Anvil.
We would love it if you would share the World Builders Anvil with 2 of your friends.
And so would they.
If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting.
Take them to Stitcher or iTunes, or best of all, just send them to our website, www.gardul.com.
That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.